could freestyle about it, preach about it, or go off top of the head. But today I brought my notes so I could resurrect the dead. Yeah! Greetings and blessings to my navigators of the seven seas. I am your locksmith, your symbologist, and metaphysical tour guide, Flat Archie 5000, and I'm back with another one as we navigate through the land of Pineal. Today we're going to unlock your Solomon's Temple to decode the history and esoteric meaning of ancestral veneration. So as always, strap on your helmet and buckle up your spacesuit because we're on a mental voyage and we're about to take off before the walls of Jericho come crumbling down. In the tradition of entering Solomon's Temple, we must use a meditative master key to help us stay on the path of enlightenment. It is these divine words that have a literal, allegorical, and metaphysical message attached to them when understood in its proper context. So today we give honors and respect to a mastermind who once said, "We don't worship dead people. We pay homage to our ancestors and understand they live in our DNA. They are the closest thing we have in the spiritual realm." Let me repeat it one more time for those of you who can't seem to wrap your minds around the infinite umbilical cord of the physical and spiritual realms. A wise navigator of the seven seas once declared to the unconscious world that we don't worship dead people. We pay homage to our ancestors and understand they live in our DNA. They are the closest thing we have in the spiritual realm. Go on and meditate on that and click your heels 3 times while I ring this bell of enlightenment for that powerful meditative key of wisdom as you enter the corridors of your Solomon's Temple. Let's get to it, shall we? No time to waste. Take note, masterminds. The phenomenon of invoking the deceased for wisdom and intervention has roots deeply embedded in the ancient consciousness of humanity. From the very beginning of the dawn of civilization, the living sought the communion with their ancestors, recognizing that the veil between the world and the next is not as impenetrable as it may seem. The ancient Egyptians, for example, spent considerable energy in their funerary rites, anticipating the journey of the soul into the afterlife, while simultaneously establishing bonds between the living and the dead. They understood that the deceased could serve as conduits of energy, wisdom, and protection. The practice of invoking the dead for favors is a rich element embedded deeply within the fabric of ancient Egyptian culture. Thus, the Egyptians, also known as the Kemites, had intricate beliefs about the afterlife and the roles of ancestors in the lives of the living. Central to these beliefs was the idea that the dead could and often did continue to influence the world of the living. This interplay between the realms of life and death characterized not just as a mystical belief system, but also as a fundamental aspect of everyday existence in ancient Egypt. From the earliest dynasties, Egyptians invested considerably in funerary practices designed to ensure safe passage to the afterlife. The famous pyramids and elaborate burial rites exemplified their belief in the afterlife's importance. The deceased were believed to retain their identities and could act on behalf of their descendants. By honoring their memory, the living sought to sustain a connection that would provide guidance, blessings, and protection, affirming that family bonds transcend even death. Also, in Kemetic mythology, Anubis, also known as Anpu, was believed to communicate with the dead. guiding them through the underworld and ensuring that their journey was smooth and safe. He was the one who helped the deceased navigate the treacherous waters of the Nile, protecting them from the dangers that lurked in the depths. And when they finally reached the afterlife, Anubis stood at the entrance to the underworld, holding a scale in his paw. The weighing of the heart and feather, one of the most crucial moments in the journey of the dead. According to Egyptian mythology, when a person's soul arrived at the underworld, they were presented to Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Osiris would then order Anubis to weigh their hearts against the feather of truth. The heart represented all the thoughts, words, and deeds of the deceased during their lifetime. Thus, if the heart was heavier than the feather, it meant the individual had lived a life of dishonesty, greed, or violence. Their heart was devoured by the god Amit, the devourer of souls, and they were consumed by their own darkness. Thus, we can now see why the concept of Ma'at, or cosmic order, was integral to the Kemetic thought. It embodied truth, balance, and harmony, principles that could be disrupted by the neglect of one's ancestors. The living sought the favor of their ancestors to ensure that they received proper care and attention in the afterlife, which in turn would reflect positively on the living. Such reciprocity was vital in maintaining the social and spiritual order. Tombs, inscriptions, and offerings became vehicles for communication, fostering a dialogue that conveyed respect, remembrance, and a plea for assistance. The offerings could also include food, clothing, and even goods to aid the deceased in their journey. These acts demonstrated an understanding that the dead were more than mere memories. They were active participants in the ongoing saga of their families. The act of divination also played an essential role in these rituals. Priests, shamans, were often called upon to channel the spirits of the deceased. This practice blended the spiritual with the social, as those seeking counsel not only engaged with the dead, but also elevated the priestly classes, reinforcing their status within society as intermediaries between the spiritual and material worlds. In this dynamic, the invocation of the dead affirmed the hierarchies present in ancient Egyptian culture, while simultaneously granting a sense of agency to the living. Furthermore, the Sumerians were also known to invoke spirits of their ancestors, not only to seek favors, but also to understand the moral and ethical dimensions of their lives. This practice was not mere superstition. Rather, it built a bridge of continuity, ensuring that the lessons of previous generations were not lost to the currents of time. The ancestors, through their diverse experiences, offered guidance, serving as a link to higher spiritual truths. Moreover, in exploring how various ancient cultures communicated with the dead, we must recognize that the relationship between the living and the deceased has been a central concept to many ancient cosmologies since time has been recorded. Unlike many Western perspectives that often regard death as a final destination, many ancient cultures viewed it as a transitional phase, a continuation between physical existence. The concept of enduring connection between the living and the dead reflects a deep understanding of community, ancestry, and the intricate interplay of life and death. Let's ring the bell for that. Among the most notable traditions in this realm is the practice of ancestral veneration, which permeates numerous societies. This practice acknowledges the spirit of the ancestors as active participants in the affairs of the living. For instance, among the Akan people of Ghana, In a Akan society, the ancestors are revered as the custodians of wisdom, knowledge, and moral guidance. They are believed to possess the power to influence the affairs of the living, providing protection, blessings, and support in times of need. This belief system is reflective of the larger African cosmology, where life is seen as a continuum rather than a series of separate stages. Thus, the rituals associated with ancestral veneration often involve elaborate ceremonies designed to honor the dead. The Akan, for example, perform the Ade festival, where families gather to pay homage to their predecessors. During this time, offerings of food, drinks, and sacrifices are made, ensuring that the deceased are well equipped in the spiritual world. These gatherings not only reinforce family bonds, but also serve to educate younger generations about their heritage and the importance of their ancestors in shaping their identity. The active engagement of community in these ceremonies shows a recognition of the cyclical nature of life, where the lessons and legacies of ancestors inform the present and guide the future. Another illuminating example is the practices of the Igbo people of Nigeria, who possess a rich spiritual tradition that includes the belief of the chi, or personal spirit, and ancestors. Communication with the dead among the Igbo is multifaceted. They employ mediums known as dibia to facilitate communication with the spirit world, allowing the living to seek counsel with their ancestors. The rituals often involve divination, offerings, and sometimes trance-like states to enable a connection with the dead. The dibia functions as a bridge, establishing dialogues that can guide the communities in making critical decisions or in healing. The Igbo culture. The ancestors are seen as protectors and guides. Their wisdom is sought through consultation, via divination, or spiritual leaders who act as intermediaries between the ancestors and the living. This practice is not rooted in superstition. Let me repeat it one more time. Let me ring the bell. This practice is not rooted in superstition. Rather, it is a vital component of maintaining moral order, communal cohesion, and cultural continuity. It teaches the younger generation about their heritage, instilling in them values of respect, responsibility, and community oriented living. Furthermore, ancestral worship creates space for the living to express gratitude for the sacrifices made by their forebears. Here, in this community, acknowledging one's roots is pivotal in promoting a strong sense of identity and belonging. When the Igbo people pay homage to their ancestors, they also honor the struggles and contributions of their lineage, which reinforces resolve and resilience in the face of contemporary challenges. Take note, masterminds. Among the Dogon people of Mali, there exists a profound understanding of life, death, and cosmic order. The Dogon not only revere their ancestors, but also engage them through an understanding of the stars and cosmic patterns. They possess a unique cosmology that emphasizes the interconnectedness of all beings, seen and unseen. In Dogon culture, the rituals surrounding the deceased often align with the agricultural cycles and celestial events. This integration reflects belief that deceased ancestors watch over and influence the lives of the living, necessitating constant communication through ritualistic practices, songs, and dances that honor their memory. Communicating with the dead also encompasses storytelling, a vital aspect of many African cultures. Oral traditions serve as a means of connecting generations, ensuring that the wisdom of ancestors is preserved and transmitted. For instance, the Maasai of East Africa utilizes narratives and parables to keep the spirit of their ancestors alive in the consciousness of the community. These stories often embody moral lessons and cultural values, promoting a sense of identity and continuity that links the living with their past. In Maasai cosmology, ancestors are seen as custodians of wisdom who provide guidance and protection to the living. The Maasai often engage in ceremonies to honor their ancestors, invoking their names in prayers and offerings, which may include the sacrifices of livestock, an important aspect of their pastoral lifestyle. Also, ceremonies such as the Anuto, the coming of age ritual for young warriors, also serve to honor ancestors. During these events, the Maasai invoke the spirits of their forebears to bless the new warriors, seeking their wisdom and strength as they transition into adulthood. By doing so, they reinforce the importance of continuity and the passage of knowledge from one generation to another, emphasizing the collective identity of the Maasai people. Additionally, the Nubian tribes of Sudan, the practice of czar spirit possession provides another avenue for engaging with the dead. This involves rituals designed to attract benevolent spirits, including those of ancestors, who can intercede on behalf of the living. The rituals are often performed as a communal setting, highlighting the social aspects of these spiritual practices. Participants may enter trances, allowing the spirits to speak through them, articulating messages and offering guidance. Such acts symbolize not only the agency of the dead, but also the acknowledgement of a broader spiritual network that weaves through the community. The diversity of practices in African tribal communication with the dead extends deep into the continent's spiritual fabric, and a significant aspect of these interactions involves the communion with spirits through nature. Many tribes, such as the Sand people of southern Africa, understand the landscape, animals, and the natural phenomena that is imbued with ancestral spirits. Rituals conducted in sacred spaces such as mountains or rivers believed to be inhabited by ancestors create an environment where the living can connect with the spiritual realm. Such practices promote a holistic understanding of existence, one that integrates the physical, spiritual, and natural worlds. It is also essential to highlight the influence of modernization and colonialism on these traditional practices. The advent of Christianity and Islam introduced new spiritual frameworks that often conflicted with indigenous beliefs. However, many African communities have demonstrated resilience and adaptability, blending traditional practices with these new faiths. The synchronism often creates unique expressions of spirituality, wherein veneration of ancestors persists within new religious contexts. In many instances, rituals and prayers invoking the dead are adapted into Christian and Islamic practices, illustrating the fluidity of belief systems in response to challenging circumstances. The practice of ancestral veneration in ancient Rome and Greece also played a vital role in reinforcing social structures and communal values. By honoring their ancestors, individuals not only acknowledge their personal lineage, but also affirm their place within the larger societal framework. This created a sense of unity and shared identity among families and communities. In Rome, the idea of virtue and piety were closely tied to the remembrance of ancestors. A family's honor was believed to reflect the ethical standards set by their forebears. As such, individuals often sought to emulate the virtues of their ancestors, striving to create a legacy worthy of remembrance. Public figures, such as politicians and military leaders, would frequently reference their lineage to assert their credibility and moral authority. The act of venerating ancestors thus functioned not only as a personal obligation, but also as a public demonstration of one's lineage and character. In Greece, the worship of ancestral heroes not only provided individual families with a sense of pride, but also fostered civil cohesion. Certain cities, like Athens, would celebrate the deeds of legendary figures through festivals, maintaining the link between the past and present. This connection served to inspire current generations, instilling a sense of purpose and responsibility to uphold the values attributed to their ancestors. Both cultures recognize the importance of rituals associated with death and memory, as these practices aided in cultivating a dialogue between the mortal and immortal realms. The rites were not merely performative, they represented a profound acknowledgement of life cycles, underscoring the belief that death is not the end, but a continuation of existence in a different form. Families understood that by venerating their ancestors, they could ensure the continuing influence of their spirits, receiving wisdom and guidance while simultaneously committing to uphold their legacies in everyday life. Furthermore, in ancient China, the act of honoring ancestors was not a mere ritual, but a powerful invocation. Families would create ancestral tablets, their names inscribed in reverence. This was a direct link to the spiritual world, like a phone line to the beyond. During the King Ming festival, families would flock to the graves, sweeping away dust and offering food and incense, ensuring their loved ones were well fed in their journey beyond. They believed that these offerings sustained the spirits, keeping them content and connected to their living kin. Thus, one must consider the significance of omens and dreams. In the ancient Chinese worldview, these were seen not just as random occurrences, but as messages from the departed. Shamans often acted as intermediaries, stepping into trance states to navigate the mystical waters between the living and the dead, extracting wisdom, warnings, and guidance from the spiritual realm. Moreover, transitioning to India, we also encounter an equally profound reverence for the dead. Here, cremation was seen as the ultimate release, an act that freed the soul to rise to higher realms. The sacred Ganges held great importance. Ashes immersed in the waters were said to purify both the spirit and the body. One must consider how rituals like the Pitrayana and the Tithi Puja underscored the belief that ancestors played protective roles over their lineage, watching over them as they navigate the material realm. Tea time! Dead people receive more flowers than the living ones because regret is stronger than gratitude. Let me repeat it one more time. For those mummies who fail to focus and live in the present moment, it was once said, dead people receive more flowers than the living ones because regret is stronger than gratitude. Now let us get back to building Noah's Ark before the flood erases every fiber of our minds. Question: why are we talking about ancestral veneration, and how can this knowledge be of any benefit to us today? Answer: in alchemy, the concept of death transcends its literal meaning, representing transformation, change, and the cyclical nature of existence. Alchemists view death as an essential part of a larger process, signifying the end of one phase that paves the way for another. This principle aligns with the pursuit of the great work, magnus opus, where the old self or material must disintegrate for something new and refined to emerge. Thus, we have a alchemical metamorphosis aimed at turning base metals into gold. Take note, masterminds, death in alchemical framework also relates to the process of sublimation. which involves breaking down substances into their fundamental elements. This step is similar to the natural cycle of life, death, and rebirth. As navigators of the seven seas, we understand that just as the physical body may face death, undergoing this transformation is necessary for the refinement and elevation of the material, allowing it to achieve a higher state of being. Putrefaction is another key phase in the alchemical process that resonates with the idea of death. It symbolizes decay or decomposition, a stage where the material returns to its primal state, facilitating profound transformation. This death of the material is crucial as it emphasizes that something must break down in order for regeneration and new life to occur, paralleling natural processes seen in nature. Thus, the journey towards creating the Philosopher's Stone is considerably linked to the concept of death in alchemy. The Philosopher's Stone symbolizes the ultimate achievement in alchemy, encompassing the transmutation of base substances and the quest for spiritual immortality. Achieving this stone often requires a symbolic death of the ego and lower impulses, emphasizing the necessity of surrendering the old self to manifest a new enlightened state. Ultimately, death in alchemy illustrates the interconnectedness of life and death, encapsulating the idea that every ending leads to a new beginning. Alchemical processes are characterized by cycles of dissolution and purification that facilitates renewal and transformation, embodied by the divine etheric principles of 9 to the ninth power of 9. Let's ring the bell for that. Thus, by embracing the symbolism of death, masterminds recognized it as a vital stage in their quest for spiritual and material fulfillment. Moreover, ancestral veneration is the spiritual practice of honoring those who came before us, our ancestors. In many esoteric traditions, this practice extends far beyond mere remembrance. It's about forming a conduit to spiritual wisdom, energy, and a sense of belonging that transcends time and space. This sacred space, which is called and referred to as divine consciousness, serves not only as a tribute, but as a focal point for channeling the insights of our forebears. The act of honoring them connects us to a vast lineage of experiences and knowledge. Our ancestors are not merely figures of the past. They are living energies that influence our present and guide our future. Thus, in the occult realm, we understand that everything is interconnected. Each ancestor carries a unique spiritual frequency, a set of lessons and burdens, and by recognizing their presence in our lives, we tap into a reservoir of insight. In some traditions, this is referred to as the ancestral archive, a collective unconsciousness that holds the wisdom of generations. By invoking our ancestors, we draw from that rich repository, gaining clarity and strength in our own journeys. Furthermore, ancestral veneration also serves as a method of healing. Many of us carry unresolved traumas, shadows, or imbalances that may not originate from our current lives, but instead echo through ancestral lines. By acknowledging and honoring these forebears, we have the opportunity to cleanse the stagnant energies that we inherited. This is a crucial step in personal transformation and spiritual evolution. It acts as a bridge, establishing a dialogue with the unseen world. Offering food, flowers, or even a glass of wine allows us to create a nurturing space for our ancestors. We invite them in, not merely as spectators of our lives, but as active participants and guides. The presence of our ancestors can fortify our resolve, empower our decisions, and illuminate paths we had yet to consider. However, veneration is a two-way street. In acknowledging our ancestors, we carry the responsibility of embodying their values, wisdom, and lessons. We must not only seek their guidance, but also strive to honor their legacy through our actions. This is the essence of what it is meant to live as part of a greater whole. Thus, in the intricate web of existence, ancestral veneration is a transformative practice that empowers us to connect deeply with our roots, heal generational wounds, and evolve spiritually. By honoring those who came before us, we illuminate the path for those who would follow. So, as always, in Solomon's Temple, I leave you in peace with these powerful words. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Let me repeat it one more time, just so the postman don't go past your house. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Ashe, ashe, ashe.